Hello, my name is Alex Saposi, and this is my video on fermentation for this week of microbiology. This week we were urged to ferment a food and speak on the process. Since I had limited time this week due to moving, I chose a practical form of fermentation that does not take long to observe, which is yeast bread. I also chose this practical option because of my family's background in flour milling, as my mother currently works for a flour mill company that is very prominent, and I imagine many people in the class have consumed the products that come from this mill. The first step was finding a simple bread recipe. I chose a 4-ingredient bread, as I think the simpler the recipe is, the more it is appreciated. And the more appreciation we have for the process that occurs to make it. These ingredients included active dry yeast, warm water, all-purpose flour, and kosher salt. Oil was also used to grease the bowl that the dough had to rise in, and this was to prevent sticking. After my bread was made, which took around 2 hours to allow for rising and baking, I was able to enjoy it with my family for dinner last night. Today, I am examining the questions posed for this video. The first question is, what microbes are involved in the process? The microbes in this process are yeast, which when fermented, break down sugars in the bread's dough to create alcohol and bubbles of carbon dioxide. This process is what gives the bread its light, fluffy texture rather than the dense characteristics that the dough initially has upon mixing. Question 2 asks, what is the purpose of adding the ingredients in your recipe? By adding the yeast, which is the ingredient that causes the fermentation, sugars are broken down into carbon dioxide and water, and enzymes that are already present in the yeast and flour allow the speeding up of this reaction for a quicker fermentation process than something like a pickle in a brine. The energy that is released during this process is used for growing and activity of the yeast. Question 3 asks, what metabolic processes are the microbes undergoing? What specific byproducts are they producing that contribute to the changes in the food? Well, the specific process occurring is fermentation, with the byproducts of alcohol, carbon dioxide, and water. From the use of yeast acting with the gluten within the flour. The formation of water from the use of yeast, the formation of carbon dioxide creates bubbles, and this is what causes the texture of the bread. And these bubbles are covered in a film of gluten that is very thin. The yeast cells fill with gas, resulting ultimately in the rising of the dough. Question 4 asks, what changes occur in your food during fermentation? Does the amount of oxygen in the container change? Why? Same questions for carbon dioxide, pH, alcohol, temperature. Bread dough is limited in its oxygen. Therefore, the fermentation process creates a carbon dioxide bubble, many carbon dioxide bubbles that creates the bread's texture and increases its size. Alcohol is also produced by the yeast in this process of breaking down sugars. During the process, heat is also produced, causing an increase in temperature. pH is important in this process, as a specific pH is desired for the perfect loaf of bread. In some cases, even pH controlling agents are added to bread to obtain the desired pH levels that makes the perfect bread. And this would be in a setting such as commercial bakeries or bread factories. And the pH usually is below 5.5, and that's where you want it to be. Any higher and it's too much. Question 5 is, were you successful in making your food? I was successful in making my bread. This process I have done many times before and chose to do because of its quick time frame and practical uses. Making your daily bread has always been an idea in the back of my mind since I'm a person who admires homesteaders where this is a common practice. The knowledge about making a good yeast bread is very important, and I find it personally to be an essential skill for anybody to have. Question 6 is, what changes would you make if you were to make that food again, rather? I would not change anything about the process that I took. I followed the recipe to a T, and it yielded a delicious loaf of bread that I was able to share with my family. Overall, this was an enjoyable experience that I am happy I was able to share with my 2-year-old son specifically. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope I explained the fermentation in yeast bread and the process well. Thank you.